The sound of gunfire shattered the morning peace as Penelope Simmons crouched behind an overturned wagon, her heart pounding wildly against her ribs. The small frontier town of Dustwood, Wyoming Territory, 1876, had been her home for only 3 months, and now it was burning around her. She clutched her father's pocket, watched the only possession she'd managed to save when the gang had stormed their homestead, and prayed for a miracle. "There she is, get the Simmons girl," a gruff voice called out. Penelope recognized it instantly as Silas Maddox, the ruthless outlaw who had been terrorizing the region for months. The man who'd murdered her father over a deed to land that supposedly contained a rich gold vein. Penelope gathered her skirts and ran, her boots kicking up dust as she fled toward the livery stable. If she could reach any horse, she might escape. Behind her, she could hear the thundering footsteps of Maddox's men in pursuit. "You can't run forever, Miss Simmons." Maddox's voice boomed across the burning town. "Your pa should have just handed over that deed. Now you'll pay the same price." As she rounded the corner of the general store, a strong arm caught her around the waist, pulling her into the shadows between 2 buildings. Penelope opened her mouth to scream, but a calloused hand gently covered her lips. "Quiet now, miss," a deep voice whispered. "I'm not with them." She turned to face her rescuer. Tall and lean, with eyes as blue as a summer sky and a day's worth of stubble on his jaw, he wore the dust of the trail on his clothes and a determined expression on his face. The badge pinned to his vest caught the light from the fire's a U.S. Marshal's star, Marshal. She whispered when he removed his hand. "Adam Grayson," he said with a quick nod, "and you must be Penelope Simmons, been tracking Maddox for 3 weeks now." His eyes darted to the street where Maddox's men were still searching. "But we need to move, they're burning everything to flush you out." Penelope nodded, trying to control her trembling. "They killed my father, they think I know where the deed is hidden." "Do you?" Adam asked, his expression unreadable. "Yes," she admitted, "but it's not what they think. The gold vein ran dry years ago. My father kept the deed because this land was our fresh start." Tears threatened, but she blinked them away. This was no time for weakness. "There's a horse waiting behind the blacksmith shop," Adam said. "We need to reach it without being seen." They moved silently through the narrow alley, staying in the shadows of buildings. The smell of smoke grew stronger, and Penelope could hear the crackling of flames consuming the town she'd barely known but had hoped to call home. Just as they reached the end of the alley, a shot rang out and splinters flew from the wood beside Adam's head. He pushed Penelope behind him, drawing his revolver in one fluid motion. "Found her, boys," a voice called out, "and looks like she's got company." 3 of Maddox's men approached, guns drawn. Adam's aim remained steady, but they were outnumbered. "Hand over the girl, Marshal," the leader of the 3 said with a yellow-toothed grin. "Maddox wants a word with her about her pa's property." "That's not going to happen," Adam replied, his voice calm despite the danger. "Then we'll take her by force," the outlaw threatened. "And don't think we won't burn her alive like we did that homestead. Maddox said if she won't talk, we can watch her dance in the flames." Penelope felt her blood run cold. The memory of her home burning, her father's final cries as the roof collapsed, threatened to overwhelm her. But then she felt Adam's stance change, felt the determination radiating from him like heat from a forge. "They threatened her with fire," Adam said, his voice low but carrying clear in the morning air. Then he turned his head slightly toward Penelope, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "I've walked through worse flames for love, miss. Stay behind me." Before she could process his words, Adam moved with lightning speed. His first shot caught the leader in the shoulder, spinning him around. The other 2 fired wildly as Adam pushed Penelope through a narrow gap between buildings, returning fire as they ran. "The horse is just ahead," he called, grabbing her hand as they sprinted toward the blacksmith shop. Behind them, shouts and gunfire continued, but Adam's grip remained firm on Penelope's hand as they reached a saddled Palomino stallion tied to a post. He helped her up first, then swung into the saddle behind her, his arms encircling her waist as he took the reins. "Hold tight," he instructed, and then they were off, galloping out of Dustwood as flames consumed what remained of the small town. Penelope clung to the saddle horn, feeling Adam's solid presence behind her, his breath warm on her neck as they rode hard toward the distant mountains. Her life had been upended in a matter of hours, but somehow in this stranger's arms she felt a flicker of hope she hadn't dared acknowledge since her father's death. They rode until the horse needed rest, stopping at a small creek sheltered by cottonwood trees. Adam helped her down, his hands lingering at her waist a moment longer than necessary. Penelope was acutely aware of him, this man who had risked his life for her, a stranger. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his eyes scanning her for injuries. "No," she replied, though her body ached from the long ride and the terror of the morning. "But you're bleeding." Adam glanced at his arm where a bullet had grazed him. "It's nothing, I've had worse." "Let me see," she insisted, her nurse's training taking over. Her father had been the town doctor back in Ohio before consumption took her mother, and they decided to seek a new beginning in the West. Adam reluctantly allowed her to examine the wound as the horse drank from the creek. She tore a strip from her petticoat to bind it, working with gentle efficiency. "You've done this before," he observed. "My father was a doctor," she explained. "I assisted him often." "And now?" Adam asked, wincing slightly as she tightened the makeshift bandage. Penelope's hands stilled. "Now I have nothing, no home, no family." The reality of her situation crashed over her like a wave. "I don't even know where we're going." Adam's expression softened. "I have a cabin. It's about a day's ride from here in the foothills. Maddox and his men won't find us there." "Why are you helping me?" Penelope asked, suddenly realizing how completely she had placed her trust in this man she'd known for only hours. Adam was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. 3 years ago, Maddox and his gang raided a settlement near Fort Laramie. My sister was there with her husband and daughter. His jaw tightened. "They didn't survive." "I'm sorry," Penelope whispered, understanding his drive to capture Maddox. "I've been tracking him ever since," Adam continued. "Got my marshal's badge specifically to hunt him down legally." He looked at her then, his eyes intense. "When I heard he was after you, I knew I had to get to Dustwood. But you didn't know me." "I know Maddox," Adam replied simply, and that was enough. They rested for an hour before continuing their journey, the landscape changing gradually as they climbed higher into the foothills. Penelope, exhausted from the ordeal and the long ride, found herself leaning back against Adam's chest, drawing comfort from his steady presence. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Adam pointed to a ridge ahead. "My cabin is just beyond that rise," he told her. "We'll be safe there tonight." The cabin was small but sturdy, nestled among pine trees with a clear view of the valley below. Adam helped Penelope down from the horse, her legs unsteady after the long ride. "It's not much," he said, almost apologetically as he unlocked the door. "But it's solid and Maddox doesn't know about it." Inside, the cabin was simple but well-maintained. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, with a small kitchen area and a table with 2 chairs. A curtain separated the main room from what Penelope assumed was the sleeping area. "You can take the bed," Adam said, removing his hat and running a hand through his dark hair. "I'll sleep by the fire." Penelope looked around, suddenly overcome with the strangeness of her situation. Yesterday, she had been the daughter of the town's newest doctor, helping her father establish his practice in Dustwood. Now she was alone with a marshal she barely knew, hiding from men who wanted her dead over a worthless deed. "Are you hungry?" Adam asked, breaking into her thoughts. "I have some jerky and beans. It's not much, but it's fine," she interrupted, offering a small smile. "Thank you." While Adam prepared a simple meal, Penelope found herself drawn to the window, watching as darkness fell over the mountains. In the distance, a faint orange glow marked what might be the remains of Dustwood. "I should have gone back for my father's body," she said quietly. "Given him a proper burial." Adam paused in his cooking. "That would have been suicide, Miss Simmons. Maddox had men watching your father's practice. It was all I could do to get you out alive." "Please call me Penelope," she said, turning from the window. After today, Miss Simmons feels like another person entirely. Penelope, Adam repeated, and the way her name sounded in his deep voice sent an unexpected warmth through her. They ate in comfortable silence, the events of the day catching up with both of them. After cleaning up their simple meal, Adam stoked the fire and brought out a blanket for himself. "The bed is through there," he said, nodding toward the curtain. "There's a basin with water if you want to wash up." "Thank you," Penelope said, hesitating at the curtain, "for everything. I'd likely be dead if not for you." Adam's eyes met hers, and something passed between them, a connection that transcended their brief acquaintance. "Get some rest, Penelope," he said softly. "We'll figure out our next move in the morning." Behind the curtain, Penelope found a neatly made bed and a small washstand with a basin and pitcher. She washed the dust and fear of the day from her face and hands, then removed her outer dress, hanging it carefully over a chair. In her chemise and petticoat, she slipped under the quilt, breathing in the scent of pine and something distinctly masculine that must be Adam's. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flames and heard her father's screams. After an hour of tossing and turning, she heard Adam's voice from the other side of the curtain. "Penelope, are you all right?" She sat up, wrapping the quilt around her shoulders. "I can't sleep every time I close my eyes." "I understand," he said, his voice closer now. "Would it help if we talked?" Penelope hesitated only briefly before responding. "Yes, I think it would." She heard his footsteps, then the curtain parted slightly. Adam stood there, having removed his vest and boots, looking somehow more approachable in his simple cotton shirt and trousers. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the edge of the bed. Penelope nodded, tightening the quilt around herself as he sat, keeping a respectful distance. "Tell me about your father," Adam suggested gently, and so she did. She told him about Dr. Samuel Simmons, a dedicated physician who had lost his wife to consumption and decided to start anew in the West. How he had taught her about medicine and healing, hoping she would become a nurse or perhaps even a doctor herself someday, despite the obstacles women faced in the profession. "He sounds like a remarkable man," Adam said when she fell silent. "He was," Penelope agreed, wiping away a tear. "And now I'm alone." Adam's hand moved as if to reach for hers but stopped short. "You're not alone, Penelope, not anymore." His words hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning she wasn't sure either of them fully understood yet. But they provided comfort nonetheless. "What about you?" she asked, eager to focus on something other than her loss. "How did you become a marshal?" Adam leaned back against the bedpost, his expression thoughtful. "My father was a sheriff in a small town in Colorado. I grew up watching him uphold the law, protect people. When he died, shot in the back by a man he was trying to arrest, I knew I wanted to follow in his footsteps." "And your sister?" Penelope prompted gently. Adam's jaw tightened. "Rebecca was 5 years older than me. She married a homesteader named Thomas, and they had a little girl, Lily. They were trying to build a life near Fort Laramie when Maddox and his gang raided their settlement." His voice hardened. "They weren't just after valuables, they burned homes, killed men, women, and children alike." "I'm so sorry," Penelope whispered, understanding now why Adam had risked his life for her so readily. In saving her from Maddox, he was fighting the same battle he'd been waging for 3 years. "That's why I said what I did today," Adam admitted, his eyes finding hers in the dim light. "About walking through worse flames. I've been consumed by the fire of vengeance for so long, hunting Maddox, that everything else faded away. And now?" Penelope asked, something in his gaze making her heart beat faster. "Now I'm reminded there are other things worth fighting for," he said quietly, the moment stretched between them, fragile and full of possibility. Then Adam cleared his throat and stood. "You should try to sleep," he said. "Tomorrow we'll need to decide our next move. Maddox won't give up easily." "No, he won't," Penelope agreed, suddenly feeling the weight of exhaustion again. "Thank you for talking with me, Adam," he smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his serious face. "Anytime, Penelope, good night." As he disappeared behind the curtain, Penelope settled back into the bed, her mind still filled with thoughts of Adam Grayson, the marshal who had saved her life, and was now inexplicably becoming important to her in ways she couldn't yet define. Morning came with golden light filtering through the cabin's small windows. Penelope woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Adam moving quietly in the main room. For a moment, she lay still, orienting herself to her new reality. Dressing quickly in her rumpled clothes from yesterday, she pushed aside the curtain to find Adam at the stove, cooking what appeared to be flapjacks. "Good morning," he said, glancing up with a smile that made her stomach flutter. "Good morning," she replied, self-consciously smoothing her hair. "You didn't need to cook. We both need to eat," he said simply, sliding a flapjack onto a plate. "And I hope you like coffee. It's a bit strong, but it'll wake you up." Penelope accepted the plate and cup gratefully, settling at the small table. "Have you thought about what we should do next?" She asked after taking a sip of the strong, bitter coffee. Adam joined her at the table, his expression serious. "Maddox will be looking for us. For now, we're safe here, but eventually we'll need to move." "Where would we go?" Penelope asked. "There's a town called Silver Creek about 2 days' ride from here," Adam explained. "The sheriff there, Patrick Riley, is a friend. He could help us contact the territorial governor about bringing in more marshals to deal with Maddox." Penelope nodded slowly, considering their options. "But wouldn't Maddox expect us to head for the nearest town?" "Possibly," Adam conceded. "But we don't have many choices. You need proper clothing, supplies. We can't stay in this cabin indefinitely." "What about the deed?" Penelope asked. "It's what Maddox wants." Adam's gaze sharpened. "Do you have it with you?" She nodded, reaching into the pocket of her dress and withdrawing a folded yellow document. "I grabbed it before fleeing the house. My father always kept it in his medical bag." Adam took it carefully, examining the faded writing. "Your father was right. This claim was worked out years ago. There's nothing of value left." "Try telling that to Maddox," Penelope said bitterly. "He's convinced there's still gold to be found." "Men like Maddox see what they want to see," Adam replied, returning the deed to her. "Keep it safe. It might be the only proof you have of your father's property." They finished their breakfast in thoughtful silence. Then Adam announced he needed to check on the horse and gather more firewood. Penelope offered to clean up the breakfast things, grateful for the simple task that kept her hands busy and her mind distracted. As she washed the plates in a basin of water, she caught sight of her reflection in the small mirror hanging near the door. Her face was pale, with dark circles under her eyes, and her honey blonde hair had come loose from its pins. She looked like a different woman than the proper doctor's daughter who had arrived in Dustwood full of hope for a new beginning. Outside, she could hear Adam chopping wood. The rhythmic sound was oddly comforting, a reminder that she wasn't alone. When she finished cleaning up, Penelope ventured outside, wrapping her arms around herself in the cool mountain air. Adam looked up from his work, wiping sweat from his brow. "Everything all right?" he asked, setting down the axe. "Yes," she assured him. "I just wanted some fresh air. It's beautiful here." And it was. The cabin was situated on a small clearing surrounded by tall pines with mountains rising majestically in the distance. In different circumstances, Penelope would have found the setting peaceful, even idyllic. "My grandfather built this cabin," Adam said, gathering the split logs into his arms. "He was a trapper before the territory became more settled. I come here when I need to think or when a case takes me through these parts. It's a good place to hide," Penelope observed, helping him collect smaller pieces of wood. "That too," Adam agreed with a wry smile, "though I've never brought anyone else here before." The admission surprised her. "Not even other marshals," Adam shook his head. "Not even them. This place has always been private." Penelope wasn't sure how to respond to that, so she simply followed him back to the cabin, her arms full of kindling. As they stacked the wood near the fireplace, their hands brushed, and Penelope felt a jolt of awareness course through her. Adam's eyes met hers, and she knew he'd felt it too. "We should prepare to leave tomorrow," he said after a moment, his voice slightly rougher than before. "The sooner we reach Silver Creek, the sooner we can get proper help dealing with Maddox." "Of course," Penelope agreed, stepping back, needing distance from the confusing feelings Adam stirred in her. It was too soon after her father's death. too soon after the destruction of everything she knew to be feeling such things for a man she'd just met. But as the day progressed, with Adam teaching her how to load and fire his spare revolver, just in case, showing her the hidden spring behind the cabin, and preparing supplies for their journey, Penelope found herself increasingly drawn to this quiet, competent man with sad eyes and gentle hands. That night, as they sat before the fire after another simple meal, Adam broke the comfortable silence between them. "Tell me what you hope to find in the West," he said. Before all this happened, Penelope gazed into the flames, considering his question. "A fresh start, I suppose." "After my mother died, my father was never quite the same. He thought moving west, helping people who had limited access to medical care, might give him purpose again." She sighed. "I was just following him at first. But I began to see the appeal: wide open spaces, the chance to define yourself by your actions rather than your family name or station." "And did you find that in Dustwood?" Adam asked. "We were only there 3 months, Penelope replied, "but yes, in some ways. People were grateful for my father's skills. I was starting to feel useful, helping him treat patients." "You still have those skills," Adam pointed out. "Silver Creek has no doctor. The nearest one is in Crawford, 30 miles away." The idea planted a seed in Penelope's mind, a future she hadn't dared contemplate since fleeing Dustwood. "Do you think people would accept a female healer?" Adam's smile was warm. "I think people who need medical attention care more about getting help than about who provides it." "Your father taught you well, didn't he?" "Yes," she said, newfound determination strengthening her voice. "Yes, he did." As the fire burned down to embers, Adam once again prepared to sleep on the floor near the hearth. Penelope watched him arrange his blanket, struck by how quickly this man had become important to her. "Adam," she said softly as he settled onto his makeshift bed, "thank you, not just for saving me, but for giving me hope that there might be a future beyond all this." He looked up at her, the dying firelight casting his features in shadow and light. "There is a future, Penelope, I promise you that." With those words echoing in her mind, Penelope retreated behind the curtain to the bed, feeling for the first time since her father's death that tomorrow might hold more than just fear and running. Morning dawned clear and cold, a perfect day for travel if not for the anxiety churning in Penelope's stomach. The prospect of leaving the safety of the cabin made the danger they faced from Maddox and his gang seem more immediate again. Adam must have sensed her unease as they packed their few belongings and supplies onto his horse. "We'll stick to game trails and avoid the main roads," he assured her, checking the cinch on the saddle. "It'll take longer to reach Silver Creek, but we're less likely to encounter trouble." "How well do you know these mountains?" Penelope asked, accepting the canteen he handed her. "Well enough," Adam replied. "I've tracked outlaws through this territory for 5 years now. There are paths most folks don't know about." His confidence was reassuring. As they mounted the horse, Penelope once again in front with Adam's arms encircling her to hold the reins, she found herself leaning into his solid presence. They rode in companionable silence for much of the morning, the terrain growing increasingly rugged as they followed narrow trails through dense forest. Adam pointed out landmarks occasionally, a distinctive rock formation, a stream that never ran dry even in drought years, the distant peak of Eagle Mountain that would guide them towards Silver Creek. By midday, they had descended into a small valley where a clear stream provided water for both them and the horse. As they rested in the shade of cottonwood trees, sharing jerky and hardtack, Adam suddenly tensed, his hand moving to his revolver. "What is it?" Penelope whispered, fear clutching at her heart. "Smoke," Adam said, nodding toward the horizon where a thin column rose into the clear sky. "Could be a campfire, could be trouble. Either way, we should move." They quickly packed up and continued their journey, Adam now vigilant, his body tense behind Penelope's. The sense of safety she'd felt at the cabin seemed far away now. As afternoon wore on, the trail narrowed, forcing them to ride single file along a rocky ridge. The drop to their right was steep, not immediately fatal, but certainly dangerous. "Keep your eyes forward," Adam advised as Penelope glanced nervously at the edge. "The horse knows what he's doing." She nodded, focusing on the trail ahead and trying to ignore the queasy feeling in her stomach when she thought about the drop beside them. They were halfway across the ridge when the first shot rang out, echoing among the rocks. The horse reared in fright, and Penelope screamed as she felt herself slipping from the saddle. Adam's arm tightened around her waist, keeping her from falling as he struggled to control the panicked animal. "Hang on," he shouted, spurring the horse forward as more shots peppered the rocks around them. Penelope clung to the saddle horn, her heart in her throat as the horse galloped along the narrow trail. Behind them, she could hear shouts and the thunder of pursuing hooves. "Maddox." She gasped as they rounded a bend in the trail. "Has to be," Adam replied grimly. "Must have guessed we'd head this way." They plunged into a grove of pine trees, the lower branches whipping at them as Adam pushed the horse to its limits. The sounds of pursuit grew fainter, but Adam didn't slow their pace until they reached a small clearing beside a fast-flowing creek. "We need to cross," he said, eyeing the churning water. "It's our best chance to lose them." The creek was swollen with spring melt, its waters running high and fast over slick rocks. Penelope swallowed hard, knowing they had little choice. "All right," she agreed, steeling herself. Adam guided the horse into the water, the animal hesitating before stepping carefully into the current. The water rose quickly, soon reaching the horse's belly as it fought against the powerful flow. Midway across, disaster struck. The horse's footing slipped on a submerged rock, and suddenly they were being swept downstream, the frigid water closing over Penelope's head before she could draw breath. She surfaced gasping, the current carrying her swiftly away from Adam and the horse. Through water-blurred vision, she saw Adam swimming powerfully toward her, his face set in grim determination. "Grab that branch," he shouted, pointing to a fallen tree that extended partly into the creek. Penelope fought against the current, her sodden skirts threatening to drag her under. Her fingers brushed the rough bark twice before she managed to grasp it firmly. The force of the water slammed her against the trunk, knocking the breath from her lungs, but she held on. Adam reached her moments later, pulling himself along the tree trunk until he could grasp her arms. "I've got you," he assured her, his breathing labored as he helped her toward the shore. They collapsed on the rocky bank, gasping and shivering. The horse had managed to make it across further downstream and now stood dripping and trembling on the opposite bank. "Are you hurt?" Adam asked, pushing wet hair from Penelope's face with gentle fingers. "Just cold," she managed through chattering teeth. "And bruised." Adam helped her to her feet, his own clothes streaming water. "We need to find shelter and build a fire before nightfall, or we'll both catch our death." The sound of voices from upstream spurred them into motion. Adam whistled sharply, and to Penelope's amazement, the horse picked its way back into the water, crossing to their side. "Good boy, Thunder," Adam praised, taking the reins. Many of their supplies had been lost in the crossing, but some remained in the saddlebags, including Adam's spare ammunition and, thankfully, matches wrapped in oilskin. They moved quickly away from the creek, Adam leading the horse through dense underbrush to hide their trail. The sun was beginning to set when they finally found suitable shelter, a small cave formed by a rocky overhang. "It's not ideal," Adam said, surveying the space, "but it will keep us hidden and provide some protection from the elements." While Adam gathered wood for a fire, Penelope wrung water from her hair and skirts as best she could. Her entire body ached from the ordeal in the creek, and the chill seemed to have settled into her bones. When Adam returned with an armful of wood, he quickly built a small fire near the mouth of the cave, positioning it so the smoke would disperse through the surrounding trees rather than rising in a telltale column. "You're shivering," he observed, concern etching his features. "We need to get you out of those wet clothes." The practicality of his statement couldn't disguise the intimacy it implied. Penelope felt heat rise to her cheeks despite her chilled state. I have nothing else to wear," she pointed out. Adam rummaged in one of the surviving saddlebags and produced a somewhat damp but still serviceable shirt. "You can wear this while your dress dries. I'll step outside to give you privacy." Penelope accepted the shirt gratefully, waiting until Adam had left the cave before struggling out of her sodden dress and undergarments. The shirt was large on her, reaching to her knees, but it was relatively dry and smelled of Adam, a scent she was beginning to associate with safety. "You can come back," she called softly when she was decent, laying her wet clothes on rocks near the fire to dry. Adam returned, his gaze briefly taking in her appearance before he busied himself with the fire. He had removed his own wet shirt, and in the flickering light, Penelope could see scars marking his torso, evidence of the dangerous life he led. "We should eat something," Adam said, producing jerky from the saddlebag. "It's not much, but it'll help keep our strength up." They ate in silence, huddled near the fire for warmth. Outside, darkness had fallen completely, and the sounds of the forest at night surrounded them: the hoot of an owl, the rustling of small creatures in the underbrush, the whisper of wind through pine needles. "Do you think they're still looking for us?" Penelope asked eventually. "Probably," Adam admitted, "but they won't be able to track us easily in the dark. We should be safe until morning." Penelope pulled her knees to her chest, trying to suppress another shiver. Despite the fire, the cave was cold, and her wet hair sent rivulets of water down her back. Adam noticed her discomfort immediately. "You're still cold," he said, moving closer. "Here." He sat beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders and drawing her against his side. The heat of his bare skin was startling against her chilled body. "Is this all right?" he asked, his voice low and uncertain. Penelope nodded, unable to find words as she slowly relaxed into his warmth. This closeness was inappropriate by any social standard she'd ever known. But here, in this cave with danger lurking outside, such considerations seemed distant and unimportant. "When I was tracking Maddox," Adam said after a while, his voice rumbling in his chest beneath her ear, "I never expected to find you." The simple statement carried weight beyond its words. Penelope lifted her head to look at him, finding his blue eyes intense in the firelight. "I'm glad you did," she whispered. Adam's hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb gently tracing her cheekbone. "So am I." The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken feelings and the crackling of the fire. Then, with deliberate slowness, Adam lowered his head, giving her every chance to pull away before his lips met hers. The kiss was gentle at first, a question more than a demand. Penelope answered by sliding her hand to his shoulder, drawing herself closer as the kiss deepened. Heat spread through her that had nothing to do with the fire, banishing the last of the chill from her bones. When they finally parted, both breathing heavily, Adam rested his forehead against hers. "I've never felt like this," he admitted, his voice rough with emotion. "Not about anyone." "Neither have I," Penelope confessed. "It's too fast, isn't it? We barely know each other." Adam's smile was tender as he brushed a strand of damp hair from her face. "Sometimes life doesn't give us the luxury of time, Penelope. Sometimes you just know." They settled beside the fire, Penelope's head resting on Adam's shoulder, his arm secure around her waist. As she drifted toward sleep, exhaustion finally overtaking her, she realized that in the midst of danger and loss, she had found something unexpected: the beginning of love. Morning brought stiffness and soreness from their ordeal in the creek, but also a renewed determination. Their clothes had dried overnight, and after a brief breakfast of the last of their provisions, they prepared to continue their journey. "Silver Creek is still a day's ride away," Adam said as he helped Penelope onto Thunder. "We'll need to be careful. Maddox won't give up easily." The day passed without incident as they traveled through increasingly gentle terrain. The mountains gave way to rolling hills covered in wildflowers and tall grasses that swayed in the spring breeze. By late afternoon, they could see smoke rising from distant chimneys, the first sign of Silver Creek. "We should reach town by nightfall," Adam said, relief evident in his voice. "Patrick will help us. He's one of the few men I trust completely." Penelope nodded, her thoughts already turning to what awaited them in Silver Creek. Would there be a telegram from the territorial governor? Would she find work using her medical skills? And what of her growing feelings for Adam? As if sensing her thoughts, Adam's arm tightened briefly around her waist. Whatever happens, Penelope will face it together. The simple promise warmed her heart. They had known each other for only days, yet she felt as though she'd known Adam Grayson all her life. They were less than an hour from Silver Creek, riding through a narrow pass between two hills, when disaster struck again. The crack of a rifle shot echoed through the pass, followed by the ping of a bullet ricocheting off rock nearby. Ambush. Adam shouted, spurring thunder into a gallop as more shots rang out. Penelope clung to the saddle as they raced through the pass, bullets kicking up dirt around them. They burst into an open meadow, and Penelope gasped at the sight before them. Silas Maddox himself sat atop a large black horse flanked by 4 of his men. Their guns were drawn, faces set in triumphant smirks. "End of the line, Marshal," Maddox called, his voice carrying across the meadow. "Hand over the girl and the deed, and maybe I'll let you live." Adam drew thunder to a halt, his body tense behind Penelope. She could feel his breath, controlled but rapid, against her neck. "That's not going to happen, Maddox," Adam replied, his voice steady despite their dire situation. Maddox's laugh was cold and devoid of humor. "Always the hero, Grayson? Just like your sister's husband, he tried to protect her too." He gestured to his men. "Spread out, I want them alive if possible. The girl knows where the real deed is hidden." "There is no other deed," Penelope called out, finding courage she didn't know she possessed. "The claim is worthless. The gold ran out years ago." "Lies," Maddox spat. "Your father would never have held onto it if it wasn't valuable." "He held onto it because it was our home," Penelope retorted. "Our fresh start. Not everything is about gold, Maddox." The outlaw's face twisted with rage. "Get them," he ordered his men. What happened next unfolded with terrifying speed. Adam pushed Penelope from the saddle, shouting for her to run for the trees at the edge of the meadow. She hit the ground hard but scrambled to her feet as gunfire erupted around her. Adam had drawn his revolver, firing with deadly accuracy at Maddox's men as he used thunder for cover. One outlaw fell, then another, but they were still outnumbered. Penelope reached the tree line, her heart pounding in her ears. She turned to see Adam take a hit to his shoulder, nearly knocking him from the saddle. Despite his injury, he continued firing, determination etched on his face. Remembering the revolver Adam had given her, Penelope drew it from the pocket of her dress. Her hands trembled as she cocked the hammer, but she steadied herself, recalling Adam's patient instructions during their day at the cabin. Taking careful aim at the nearest of Maddox's men, she squeezed the trigger. The gun bucked in her hand, the noise deafening, but her shot went wide. It was enough, however, to distract the outlaw, giving Adam the opportunity to take him down with a well-placed shot. Maddox, seeing his advantage slipping away, charged directly at Adam, firing as he rode. Adam's horse reared, throwing him from the saddle. He hit the ground hard but rolled immediately to his feet, firing at Maddox even as blood seeped from his wounded shoulder. Penelope watched in horror as the 2 men faced each other in the center of the meadow. Maddox's gun clicked empty, and with a snarl he drew a wicked-looking knife from his belt. "I'm going to gut you like a fish, Grayson," he threatened, advancing on Adam. "Then I'm going to find that pretty little doctor's daughter and make her tell me where the real deed is hidden." Adam stood his ground, his own revolver empty now. "You'll have to kill me first, Maddox." "That's the plan," the outlaw sneered, lunging with the knife. Adam dodged, but his injured shoulder slowed him. The knife sliced across his ribs, drawing a red line that immediately soaked his shirt. Penelope gasped, raising her revolver again, but the men were too close together now. She risked hitting Adam. The 2 men grappled, Maddox's greater size giving him an advantage as he forced Adam to the ground. The knife gleamed in the late afternoon sun as Maddox raised it for a killing blow. Without conscious thought, Penelope burst from the tree line, firing the last of her bullets wildly. One struck the ground near Maddox, causing him to jerk back in surprise. It was the opening Adam needed. With a surge of strength, he twisted, throwing Maddox off balance and wrenching the knife from his grip. The struggle was brief but brutal. When it ended, Maddox lay motionless on the blood-soaked grass, Adam's knife buried in his chest. Adam staggered to his feet, his face pale from blood loss. Penelope ran to him, catching him as his knees buckled. "Adam," she cried, helping him to sit on the ground, "how badly are you hurt?" "I've had worse," he said with a weak attempt at a smile. "But we need to get to Silver Creek. There might be more of Maddox's men nearby." Penelope examined his wounds quickly, her medical training taking over. The shoulder wound was a through and through, painful but not immediately life-threatening. The slash across his ribs was long but shallow. With proper treatment, he would recover. "Can you ride?" she asked, already looking for Thunder, who had retreated to the edge of the meadow. Adam nodded, gritting his teeth as he struggled to stand. "Help me up." With Penelope's assistance, Adam mounted Thunder, then helped her up behind him. This time she held the reins while he leaned back against her, his breathing labored but steady. "Just stay with me," she whispered, pressing her lips to his good shoulder. "We're almost there." The ride to Silver Creek seemed endless, but finally, as the sun began to set, they crested a hill and saw the town spread out below them, a collection of wooden buildings with a church steeple rising prominently in the center. "Sheriff's office is on the main street," Adam directed, his voice weaker now. "Patrick will help us." They rode directly to the sheriff's office, drawing curious stares from townsfolk as they passed. Penelope supported Adam as he slid from the saddle, his strength clearly failing. The door to the sheriff's office burst open as they approached, and a tall man with graying temples and a star on his vest emerged, his expression changing from curiosity to alarm as he recognized Adam. "Grayson, what in tarnation happened to you?" he exclaimed, rushing forward to help support Adam's weight. "Maddox is dead," Adam managed, leaning heavily on both Penelope and the sheriff. "But I could use a doctor, Patrick." "Doc Wilson's out of town," Patrick replied, helping Adam inside into a cot against the wall. "Visiting his daughter in Crawford." "I can help," Penelope said, stepping forward. "I'm Penelope Simmons. My father was a doctor and I assisted him for years." Patrick looked skeptical but nodded when Adam murmured, "Trust her. She knows what she's doing." While Patrick fetched hot water, bandages, and a bottle of whiskey from his desk drawer, Penelope gently removed Adam's bloodied shirt, assessing his wounds more thoroughly. "The bullet went through clean," she told him, relief evident in her voice. "And the knife wound isn't deep enough to have damaged anything vital. You've lost blood, but with proper care, you'll recover fully." Adam's hand found hers, squeezing weakly. "I told you your skills would be needed." Penelope worked efficiently, cleaning and bandaging Adam's wounds while Patrick sent a deputy to telegraph the territorial governor about Maddox's death and the destruction of Dustwood. By the time she finished, Adam had fallen into an exhausted sleep, his face peaceful despite his ordeal. "He's been tracking Maddox for 3 years," Patrick said quietly as they sat at his desk, sharing coffee. "Ever since that business at Fort Laramie, Adam's sister and her family—" "I know," Penelope said softly. "He told me." Patrick studied her over the rim of his coffee cup. "Must have taken a shine to you then. Adam doesn't talk about Rebecca to anyone." Penelope felt her cheeks warm. "We've been through a lot together in a short time." "That's how it goes sometimes," Patrick said with unexpected gentleness. "Life out here doesn't always give folks the luxury of long courtships and proper introductions." Before Penelope could respond, the door opened, and a matronly woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair entered, carrying a basket covered with a cloth. "Patrick Riley, I heard you had visitors in need," she announced, her gaze falling immediately on Adam's sleeping form. "Oh, the poor man, I've brought soup and fresh bread." "Martha Cooper, you're a saint," Patrick said with evident affection. "This is Miss Penelope Simmons." "Miss Simmons, Martha runs the boarding house and makes the best apple pie in 3 territories." Martha's warm smile encompassed Penelope. "You look exhausted, dear. After you've had something to eat, I insist you come to the boarding house for a proper bath and a good night's sleep." The kindness of these strangers after the terror and hardship of the past days brought unexpected tears to Penelope's eyes. "Thank you," she managed, "but I don't want to leave Adam." Martha and Patrick exchanged a knowing glance. "He'll be right here when you return," Patrick assured her. "And I promise to send for you if he wakes or needs anything." Reluctantly, Penelope agreed, but not before brushing a gentle kiss across Adam's forehead and whispering, "I'll be back soon." The boarding house was a tidy two-story building with lace curtains in the windows and the scent of baking bread in the air. Martha showed Penelope to a small but clean room with a real bed, a luxury after days of hardship. "The bathroom is at the end of the hall," Martha informed her. "I've already had the boys fill the tub with hot water. There are fresh towels and soap, and I've left one of my daughter's dresses on the bed. Sarah's about your size, and she won't mind you borrowing it until your own things can be seen to." Overwhelmed by such generosity, Penelope could only murmur her thanks before Martha left her to her ablutions. The bath was heavenly, washing away not just the dirt and blood of their journey but some of the fear and tension as well. The borrowed dress, a simple blue cotton, fit reasonably well, and Penelope felt almost human again as she made her way downstairs to the dining room where Martha had prepared a meal. Several other boarders were present: a young schoolteacher, an elderly gentleman who introduced himself as the town banker, and a pair of sisters who ran the millinery shop. They welcomed Penelope warmly, their curiosity evident but tempered by good manners. After the meal, despite Martha's protests that she should rest, Penelope returned to the sheriff's office. She found Adam awake, propped up on the cot with pillows Martha had apparently delivered earlier. "You look better," he said, his eyes brightening as she entered. "So do you," she replied, sitting beside him and taking his hand. "How do you feel?" "Like I was shot and stabbed," Adam said with a wry smile. "But I'll live, thanks to your doctoring." Penelope checked his bandages, satisfied that the wounds showed no signs of infection. "You need rest and good food to rebuild your strength." "And you?" Adam asked, his expression serious. "What do you need, Penelope?" The question caught her off guard. I don't know," she admitted. "Everything has happened so quickly. My father, Dustwood Maddox, you." Adam's hand tightened on hers. "Patrick received a telegram from the territorial governor. Maddox's gang is being rounded up as we speak. You're safe now." "Because of you," Penelope said softly. "We saved each other," Adam corrected. "I wouldn't have made it out of that meadow without you." Silence fell between them, comfortable yet charged with unspoken feelings. Finally, Adam spoke again. "Silver Creek needs a doctor," he said. "Or someone with medical knowledge. Patrick tells me people currently have to travel to Crawford when they're seriously ill or injured." Penelope's heart quickened. "Are you suggesting I stay here?" "I'm suggesting we both stay," Adam said, his blue eyes intense. "I know it's fast, Penelope. I know we've only known each other for days. But when I thought Maddox might kill me, all I could think about was that I might never get to tell you how I feel." "How do you feel?" Penelope whispered, hardly daring to hope. Adam sat up straighter, wincing slightly at the movement. "I love you, Penelope Simmons. I love your courage, your compassion, your strength. I love the way you faced down Maddox to protect me. I love the gentleness in your hands when you tend the wounded and the fire in your eyes when you're determined." Tears welled in Penelope's eyes, spilling over onto her cheeks. "I love you too, Adam. I think I started falling for you the moment you said you'd walked through worse flames for love." "I meant it," Adam said, reaching up to cup her cheek, "and I'd do it again. For you, I'd face any danger, walk through any fire." Their kiss was tender, a promise exchanged without words. When they parted, Penelope rested her forehead against Adam's, savoring the moment of peace after so much chaos. "Stay with me," Adam murmured. "Build a life with me here in Silver Creek. It won't always be easy, but we'll face whatever comes together." "Yes," Penelope agreed without hesitation. "Yes, I'll stay." 2 weeks later, Penelope stood in the newly established medical office on Silver Creek's Main Street, arranging her father's medical instruments on a clean white cloth. The town council had enthusiastically supported her proposal to serve as the town's healer, especially after she had successfully delivered twins for the blacksmith's wife and set the broken arm of the livery stable owner's son. The small back room of the office had been converted into living quarters for her temporary. Adam had insisted with a meaningful glance, his intentions clear though propriety prevented him from stating them outright. Adam's recovery had progressed well under Penelope's care. His shoulder wound was healing cleanly, and the slash across his ribs was already fading to a thin pink line. The territorial governor had commended him for bringing down Silas Maddox, offering him the position of federal marshal for the entire region, an offer Adam was still considering. A knock at the door interrupted Penelope's thoughts. She turned to find Adam standing there, his hat in his hands and a bouquet of wildflowers in his other hand. "For the town's new doctor," he said with a smile, presenting the flowers with a flourish. "They're beautiful," Penelope exclaimed, accepting them and breathing in their sweet scent. "But I'm not really a doctor, Adam." "You're the closest thing Silver Creek has," he pointed out, "and you've already helped more people in 2 weeks than Doc Wilson did in his last month here, according to Martha." Penelope arranged the flowers in a jar of water, pleased by both the gift and the compliment. "How was your meeting with Patrick?" she asked, knowing Adam had been discussing the governor's offer with his friend. Adam's expression grew serious. "I've made a decision about that, actually. That's partly why I came to see you." Penelope's heart skipped a beat. Would he accept the position? Would it take him away from Silver Creek, away from her? Adam seemed to read her concerns in her face. "I'm going to accept," he said, "but with conditions. I want to be based here in Silver Creek, not in Cheyenne or Laramie, and I want to train deputies to handle most of the day-to-day work." "Why?" Penelope asked, relief flooding through her. Adam stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "Because my future is here now, with you if you'll have me." Penelope's breath caught in her throat. "Adam," he sank to one knee before her, still holding her hands. "Penelope Simmons, I know we've known each other for only weeks, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my days at your side. Will you marry me?" Joy bubbled up within Penelope, bright and pure. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you, Adam Grayson." Adam rose, pulling her into his arms for a kiss that held all the promise of their future together. When they parted, both breathless and smiling, he rested his forehead against hers. "I never expected to find love while tracking a killer," he said softly. "But I'm grateful every day that I found you." "Even though they threatened me with fire?" Penelope asked, remembering that terrible day in Dustwood that had brought them together. Adam's smile was tender as he repeated the words that had first revealed his heart to her. "I've walked through worse flames for love." 3 months later, on a perfect autumn day, Penelope Simmons became Penelope Grayson in Silver Creek's white-steepled church. Martha Cooper had organized much of the celebration, insisting that the town's doctor and its new federal marshal deserved a proper wedding. The entire town turned out for the occasion, filling the church to capacity and spilling out onto the steps. Patrick Riley stood as Adam's best man, while Martha's daughter Sarah, now Penelope's dear friend, served as maid of honor. As Penelope walked down the aisle in a cream-colored dress with blue ribbons that Martha and the Millinary sisters had helped create, her eyes found Adam's. He stood tall and handsome in a new suit, his badge pinned to his vest, his blue eyes never leaving hers as she approached. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. When they exchanged vows, Penelope thought of all they had endured to reach this moment, the loss, the danger, the healing they had found in each other's arms. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the preacher declared. "You may kiss your bride." Adam's kiss was gentle yet passionate, a perfect balance that Penelope had come to associate with the man himself, strong but tender, determined yet kind. The celebration afterward at the town hall lasted well into the evening, with music and dancing and more food than Penelope had seen since leaving Ohio. As night fell, Adam led her away from the festivities toward the small house they had purchased together on the edge of town, close enough for Penelope to reach her medical office quickly if needed, yet private enough for a newlywed couple. On the porch, Adam swept her into his arms, carrying her across the threshold as tradition demanded. "Welcome home, Mrs. Grayson," he said, setting her gently on her feet in the parlor they had furnished together over the past weeks. Penelope looked around at their home, modest but warm, with Adam's books sharing shelf space with her medical texts. A quilt Martha had given them draped over the sofa, and wildflowers like those Adam had brought her that day in her office, arranged in a vase on the table. "It's perfect," she said, turning to her husband with tears of happiness in her eyes. "Everything is perfect." Adam drew her into his arms, his expression tender. "Not everything," he said. "The world is still full of dangers and hardships, but whatever comes, Penelope will face it together." "Together," she agreed, standing on tiptoe to kiss him. "Always together." As moonlight streamed through the windows of their new home, Penelope thought of the journey that had brought them here, a journey that began with fire and fear but had forged a love strong enough to withstand any flame. 5 years later, Penelope sat on the porch of their expanded home, watching as Adam taught their 4-year-old son, Samuel, to ride his pony in the fenced yard. Their 2-year-old daughter, Rebecca, played with wooden blocks at Penelope's feet, occasionally looking up to clap as her brother made a successful circuit of the yard. Silver Creek had grown significantly in those 5 years, thanks in part to the railroad that now connected it to larger cities. Penelope's medical practice had flourished, and she had recently taken on an apprentice, a young woman determined to become a proper doctor despite the obstacles society placed in her path. Adam's work as federal marshal had brought law and order to the region. While he still occasionally needed to ride out after particularly dangerous criminals, he had, as promised, trained deputies who handled most cases, allowing him to be home with his family most nights. "Papa, look." Samuel called out, guiding his pony without Adam's steadying hand for the first time. "I'm doing it by myself." "Well done, son," Adam called back, his face alight with pride. "Your mother's watching too," Penelope waved, her heart full as she watched her husband and son. Adam caught her eye and smiled, that special smile he reserved only for her, full of love and the promise they had made to each other years ago on that terrible day in Dustwood. Later, after the children were asleep, Adam joined Penelope on the porch swing. The evening was warm, with fireflies beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. Adam slipped his arm around her shoulders and she leaned into his embrace, content. "I received a letter today," Adam said after a comfortable silence. "From the governor. He's offered me a judgeship in Cheyenne." Penelope looked up at him, surprised. "A judge? That's a great honor, Adam." "It is," he agreed. "But it would mean leaving Silver Creek, leaving the life we've built here, your practice, our home. What do you want to do?" Penelope asked, knowing Adam well enough to understand he had already considered this deeply. Adam's fingers played with a strand of her honey blonde hair, now styled in a more matronly fashion than when they'd met, but still drawing his touch like a magnet. "I want to stay," he said simply. "Silver Creek is our home. Our children were born here. You've built a medical practice that serves people who would otherwise go without care, and I can do more good as a marshal here than I could as a judge in Cheyenne." Relief flooded through Penelope. Though she would have supported Adam if he had wanted to accept the position, the thought of leaving Silver Creek, the town that had welcomed her, where she had found purpose and love after losing everything, had been painful. "Then we'll stay," she said, reaching up to touch his cheek. The years had added a few lines around his eyes and a touch of silver at his temples, but to Penelope he was more handsome than ever. "I'm glad." Adam turned his head to kiss her palm. "Do you ever think about that day," he asked, "when we first met in Dustwood?" "Sometimes," Penelope admitted. "It was the worst day of my life, losing my father, our home, but it also led me to you, to this life we've built together." "When I said I'd walked through worse flames for love," Adam said, his voice thoughtful, "I was thinking of my sister, of my quest for justice. I never imagined I was really speaking about a love I hadn't yet found." Penelope smiled, remembering the words that had given her hope in her darkest moment. "I'm grateful every day that you found me, Adam Grayson." "And I thank God every day that I did," he replied, drawing her closer for a kiss that, even after 5 years of marriage, still made her heart race. As stars appeared in the velvet sky above Silver Creek, Penelope rested her head on her husband's shoulder, perfectly content. The journey that had begun in fire had led them here, to a life filled with love, purpose, and the family they had created together. It wasn't always easy. There were still dangers in the world, still hardships to be faced. But together, they had built something stronger than the flames that had once threatened to consume them, a love that could weather any storm, face any challenge, and emerge stronger for having endured. And that, Penelope knew, was the greatest gift of all.